Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday, July 14th. We are in the midst of our Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. Sorry, I got distracted there for a second. I'm gonna call to order. I'll do roll call. I see Council Member Megan Sullivan online and Council Member Brandon Whedon is in the room, and I am Kelly Von Holtz. I am here, so we are all here. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on June 9th?
I move.
Can I get a second?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now we can.
good. I'm
Yeah.
not hearing anyone else. Can someone else say something?
Hello?
You can hear us?
I gotta check my sound.
Megan, I can hear you.
Can you hear Carlos?
She can hear us.
I will second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear us now, Megan?
Yes, and it was on my end. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Well, we're on to our next Thurston County Prosecutor update. I see we have both John and Christy online, and so happy to have you here and excited to hear an update.
Okay, well, maybe I'll kick it off and then Christy can kind of fill in on the things that I forget to mention or that she can give more background or information on. I thought since I don't think we've actually done a presentation for this committee as it's currently constituted. Is that right? So you are all
That's
kind
correct.
of new to this. Okay. So I want to make sure that we're kind of meeting your expectations in the sense of giving you an opportunity to ask questions and so forth. I thought maybe I'd just do a quick flyover over kind of what we do, particularly as it relates to Tumwater law enforcement cases that are referred to us, and a little bit about what's going on in our courts. And then I wanted to try to leave, a fair amount of time for maybe some Q&A, just so that we can be responsive to your questions or the information that you're looking for. Just by way of background, it's been a number of years. Christy, how long have we been contracting with Tumwater? It's been,
I want to say over 20 years. I want to
Yeah.
say it was around 2005, 2004, 2005. I believe it was when,
A little later than that, but it's been a long time.
even longer than that. Okay, John
No,
Steins, I believe was,
it hasn't been that long.
oh, not
But
as long?
close.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, it
so
was-
close to 20 years.
Yeah, I was when Chief Steins was the chief of
Yep.
police. So whenever that goes back to, we had an informal conversation back at that time about he kind of had an ongoing concern that contracting with private lawyers wasn't working as well in terms of their prosecution program. It was a fairly limited program. The lawyers that were being contracted were lawyers that, interestingly enough, you generally practice criminal defense, but then would come and be the prosecutor on cases for the city under that contract. So anyway, the conversation started and eventually turned into this, where we agreed to, by contract, become the city prosecutor for the city of Tumwater. And so we've been doing it for a long time, which means then generally our office has responsibility. We've always had responsibility for felony cases arising out of the city of Tumwater, as we do everywhere else in Thurston County. So any felony case that's referred to us by the city of Tumwater, or that has occurred in the city of Tumwater, even if it's investigated by a state agency or something, or some other, or the county sheriff's office or whatever, will come to us for review. to make, charging decisions and to prosecute the case if in fact it's charged. And with the contract, then we also took on all city misdemeanor referrals. So any case where Tumwater PD either refers to us for charging a misdemeanor, writes a misdemeanor citation, and refers it to us, we prosecuted. Originally, we were doing that when Tumwater still had its own municipal court. So we actually had a prosecutor that would go out to the city hall and do and be the prosecutor on site in the municipal court. Then a number of years later, I think John Doan was city manager at the time, really looked at the cost of having the city run its own court versus the cost of what it might be to contract with the Thurston County District Court to be the municipal court. And, lots of discussion, analysis, and so forth, ended up contracting there, and also then created a contract for to work with the Public Defender's Office in Thurston County to be the defense provider for the city. So that's kind of how you came to be associated with our office being the prosecutor, district court being essentially the Tumwater Municipal Court, and the Public Defender's Office being the Tumwater Public Defender's Office as well. One of the benefits I think that came along with that move also is that a lot of the other innovations that we have within our county courts became available that Tumwater couldn't necessarily afford or had the resources to do on their own. So for instance, we can refer anybody to any of our treatment courts, even if it comes in on a Tumwater misdemeanor. So we can refer people to our mental health court, our veterans court, our DUI, felony DUI court, or for the felony cases, we've always had the ability to refer to our drug court. But if something were to develop out of a misdemeanor case that made it a good fit for a felony drug court, we have the ability to move the case to that court as well. So that opened up a lot of opportunities there, along with our diversion program. So you may know that we also run a diversion program through pretrial services. We have a diversion program through a nonprofit provider in town called Friendship Diversion. And then just recently, we've established a partnership with Community Youth Services to pilot a diversion program, but that's focused on, I shouldn't say, but that's focused on, it is focused on 18 to 24-year-olds because CYS serves that population, has expertise with that population. But that could apply to felony or misdemeanors either way. That was originally funded by COVID resources, COVID recovery money. That money's running out. So as we speak right now, we're in the search for some kind of looking for some resources maybe to try to keep that pilot going for a while. So that's one of the things that we're facing as we come to the end of this year, as we'll have to either figure out how to fund that or end that pilot. But the other diversion programs, particularly pretrial services, is funded, and most of that is funded through our treatment sales tax. So that it applies there. We just to give you a sense of, I'm just going to pull up some numbers here that Christy had our data person run. I'm just trying to get to that. Here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to give you a sense of what the caseload looks like, so far this year, we have received from the city of Tumwater about 243 misdemeanor referrals or misdemeanor cases, of which we've charged 219 of those cases. There's always going to be a difference between the number actually charged, the number received, because as the prosecuting authority, we have the ability to say, no, we're going to decline to prosecute this case for a variety of reasons: insufficient evidence, or a witness is missing, or it doesn't, it seems de minimis. There's a variety of reasons within our guidelines that would say we would decline to file a case. And nationally, on average, that's usually around 60%, give or take, of referrals are charged, between 60 and 70%. That varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but we're on track there.
John, I'm
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Can I just
Yep.
share that there's typically, you're absolutely correct on everything, but I think there is a distinction between the misdemeanor and felony level as far as percentage. The typical charging, I'm sure Chief Keelis is very aware, is typically 65 to 70%. You pretty much can go anywhere in the country, and that's fairly common to see from felony. And Tumwater is right smack in the middle at 69% on felony this year to date. Misdemeanor actually tends to be a little higher. They're a little more simpler of cases. It's a DUI, it's an assault for, it's not as many things. And so again, Tumwater is right on point. 90% of the misdemeanor cases are being charged, at least to date, in 2026. So it's very normal to see a higher percentage of misdemeanor cases that are filed than it is to see felony cases.
Yeah. The other influence in there, just so everybody knows, is that only a prosecutor can file or charge a felony case. So we actually review a case, and we charge, or we create the charging document and file it. That's what we call filing charges. In misdemeanor cases, law enforcement has the ability to do that through citation. So when they write a citation, a criminal citation, they are actually charging that person, and that's going directly to the court. So those cases actually come into the court already having been essentially charged, if you will, by law enforcement. That is a discussion point that's coming up in our shop in terms of our internal processes, in that we are considering moving towards only accepting referrals and misdemeanors as well, and making charging decisions in all our misdemeanors. That's really a matter of a way to help us better manage our cases, manage our caseload, and to make sure that we're have a chance to review cases before they get charged to go into the court. We haven't made that decision. We're having that discussion. That's not unique to Tumwater, though. That's our entire operation in terms of our misdemeanor unit. So that would apply also to county and to the state patrol, who we also get misdemeanor cases from. Continuing on, we've received 80 felony referrals to date from Tumwater. We've charged 55 of those felonies, and we've received 42 referrals for juvenile offenses, and we've filed charges in 21 of those juvenile offenses as well. And the juvenile offenses also tends to have a little bit lower charging rate than others, because there are mandatory and other diversion options in juvenile that exist as well. So a number of juvenile cases actually get diverted before pre-charging, and so they don't get counted as a charged case, which isn't to say that something isn't happening to address, to address the issue, or to work with the respondent and, try to have some accountability. It just may not have been a charged case. So in terms
before you go
of,
any further, sorry.
Yeah.
To clarify on that, you said that there was 42 juvenile referrals. There was 21 of them that were charged.
Right.
But then, so 21 didn't get charged. Are those numbers, you were saying that they could go to deferrals or to different avenues of help? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So they could be a combination of cases that we looked at that we decided couldn't be charged because of one of the reasons I talked about. Maybe there wasn't sufficient evidence or something like that. Probably there's a good portion of them that I suspect would be diverted pre-charge, which means they go right into the diversion program through our county probation diversion program. And some of them may still be sitting in just a review queue. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. I think that that's kind of the general overview of what we do and what the caseload looks like. Christy, do you want to add anything into that? And then maybe we just do open it up for some question and answer.
Mm-hmm. One thing I would just to add, I guess, just to follow up regarding the juvenile statistic, as far as crimes against juveniles have dramatically dropped over the last 20, 25 years in Washington. I mean, that's a good thing. Juvenile is considered one of the areas where there's been a lot of success as far as alternatives because there are so many alternatives. So there are more alternative options and more cases that can be handled in different ways now that 25 years ago were not able to be handled. So that's in 2000, 1999, 2000, so roughly 26-ish years ago, on average, we had about 35 to 40 juveniles a night being held in detention, both in the old detention and now. Now, with our population close to triple of what it used to be, on average in 2025, we had about 8 juveniles in detention. So that just gives you an idea of how juvenile crime has really been changed because we're looking more at restorative versus punishment, which is different from sometimes repetitive criminal offenders and that type of thing. But I guess overall, I would say one thing that another thing that we have really been focusing on that we handle as far as domestic violence is really focusing on incorporating our attorneys that work in the domestic violence team and also that work in the district court team. They coordinate and collaborate very closely with the attorneys that are working on serious domestic violence. So the attorneys, we don't have our domestic violence cases in district court spread out among all of the deputy prosecutors. We have 1 or 2 attorneys that really that is the focus of their caseload. They get extra training. They work with victim advocates for defense interviews, victim advocates when the cases go to trial. That is not, I don't want to say unique to the entire state, but not every county has that opportunity to do that. Not every county prosecutor's office treats domestic violence with like a specialty especially on a misdemeanor level, like an assault for domestic violence. And so that's always been a strong focus of our office. That's, I would say, is unique to some other prosecutors' offices. And then we're really fortunate this year, and I can share with you that starting in August, we are going to be adding 2 additional attorneys to the misdemeanor team, to our district court team, because of public safety sales tax. We actually received the additional position starting January 1 of this year. But as you may know, typically our district court attorneys are our newest attorneys, ones that just out of law school and learning. And our office best practice is to try to, if we have really good, what we call Rule 9s, that means law students in their 3rd year of law school, they work with us during the summer full time on district court cases. And if they're really strong candidates, we encourage them to apply when we have vacant positions. And that's what we're able to say that we're hiring in August. Well, essentially, they have a offer to work as a Super Rule 9 in August, and then in September, if they get their bar results back on Friday, September 13th, that they pass the bar, then they will be added to our district court team. So we have not been able to add a position for quite some time to district court, and we're really excited to know that we're going to be able to make it a more robust court, and it's due to the public safety sales tax. Questions?
Okay, yeah, we really want to, since you all are kind of learning about us and what we do for you, would love to just answer questions.
Do you have any questions for anyone?
I guess my perception and what I continually hear is that there could be a possibility of multiple felony charges going against a specific person, and it's time and time again. So we have this bad actor. I'm just curious because obviously you're the prosecutors, but it seems perception, and I don't know if it's true. I have no facts to back it up, but is there been a change in the fact that maybe the judges aren't pushing as hard or holding people as accountable due to certain circumstances?
There's a couple pieces to that. To that question that I'm going to answer, and I'm going to be, I think very transparent, but I want to do it in a way that is also respectful to our court. So, when people come into our first charge with a crime and they're in a pretrial status, as we all know, right, that they have a presumption of innocence, right? So they're presumed innocent. And so for the last several years, we've been really looking at in our court very closely and how we deal with folks who are coming into our system who are pre-trial. So they carry that presumption of innocence with them. But yet they're, by definition, if they're charged, there's probable cause to believe that they've committed a felony, which isn't proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not a conviction. And so there's this balance that goes on between what is their risk to the community if they're able to, continue to be released pre-trial, unless and until they're convicted, right? Versus, and on the other side of that tension is that presumption of innocence, right? And this idea that there's actually court cases that talk about that also means there's a presumption that somebody should not be incarcerated pre-trial unless there's good reason to incarcerate them. There's a good public safety reason. So there's a fairly lengthy criminal rule that the judges look at that. Over the last several years, our court and prosecution, defense, all of the stakeholders have been working in this process to, I guess, reform how we deal with pretrial folks and how we implement that rule. I think, to be quite honest, the result of that is that there are more folks that are able to get their release pre-trial. And so I think there is some perception that develops from that those folks may get out, while they're pending trial, commit another crime, get rearrested, and we've got the so-called revolving door. Although the reality is if that happens, they're probably not getting out again. Not sometimes they do, but not always. And the court starts to escalate, bail or some other conditions of release if that cycle continues. Now, as we get into people who are accused of more serious crimes, violent crimes, then that presumption can shift, and the court will, in fact, start to set bail. And then for very serious Class A felonies, the court also has the option to hold people without bail, which we ask for generally in murder cases or attempted murder cases, very serious cases. So that's one part of it. And I do think that feeds a perception, like I said, that, some folks, they get arrested and then they're right back out in the community again. And people's like, well, what's going on? They just got arrested for this. Well, it's because they haven't been convicted and the court's trying to, create that balance and so forth. That's a tough place to be for the court. So I totally understand where they come from because it's easy to criticize a judge for letting somebody out who then turns around and commits another crime, even though, by rule, they're mandated to have those considerations and perhaps to do that. The other side of it is once they get convicted, the judges have less discretion there. And that's really more about our sentencing structure. In Washington, we have what's called the Sentencing Reform Act. It was implemented in the mid-1980s. It's called a determinative sentence system. And basically, it's a chart that's in statute that says how serious is the offense on one axis of it. And then the other is how many prior convictions do they have on the other axis. So the more serious crime that they commit, or the more priors they have, or both, the higher the sentence range goes. And then the judge usually has a range of, this many months to this many months incarceration, and the judge sentences within that range mostly. So from there, if the perception is people aren't getting long enough sentences, then that's really a legislative policy issue. That's, in my view, that's not really about the courts exercising any kind of unusual discretion there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the thoughts and the opinions and all the information.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I just thought of that we also provide to the city of Tumwater, but we provide this actually to all of the law enforcement agencies. When we encourage all of the law enforcement agencies to send new officers, whether it's a lateral officer coming from another agency to Tumwater for the first time, or they're just getting hired out of the academy, to spend at least a day or two with our office so that we can get those officers into watch trials, into watch court, to ideally to see an officer on the stand for direct examination and cross-examination. And it is a really good addition to the training that officers get, because oftentimes they'll go to, they don't have that experience. Chief Keelis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think years and years ago it might have been a piece of what was trained at the academy, but it is not part, I don't believe, of the current curriculum right now at the academy. And so officers get an opportunity to see, that's what I might be asked. This is what I need to put in my report, in addition to all of the other things that I'm learning. And our prosecutors clearly see better reports. We see better officers when they're ready to testify and ready to stand, because they've watched that happen and seen an officer on that stand. I would say especially the cross-examination. That's extremely valuable for an officer to be able to watch that. So we do that routinely. We had officers from another agency here today. I think we have another officer from Tumwater coming shortly that's going to be, that's a new hire for your agency. So that's something else I wanted to point out that we like to do, and it's just works well for all of us. It's very valuable. And then we talked about the officer court view. I think that the last piece is, John touched on it with our diversion and alternative programs. We encourage you to come to one of our drug court graduations or a mental health court graduation. It is really eye-opening if you've never seen those, because it is such a different view of what people would think may happen with someone in the criminal justice system in such a positive way. It's a very positive way to handle a case when someone has been successful with the treatment program. We have one coming up, but I checked because I know that there were some interest, I think, with some of your members to attend one, and there's no one from Tumwater in this next group of graduates, but I've already spoken with both of our primary drug court and mental health court deputy prosecutors, and they know if they see a graduate on the list of the next group that's from Tumwater, I'm going to reach out to you and see if there's any interest for you to come and watch some citizens of Tumwater be successful in one of those graduations.
Steve, this is Paul Simmons. You can send those through my office, and then
Perfect.
Brittany McClanahan, our executive assistant, can coordinate with council members to let them know of the availability. That
Will
sounds like
do.
a great opportunity.
Yeah, I would totally appreciate that. That
Yeah.
would be an amazing opportunity to go in and see. Thank you.
Councilmember Sullivan?
It'll make you a believer in human redemption and second chances for sure.
Love it. Councilmember Sullivan?
Thank you for all of this information. I had a couple things caught my attention when you guys were sharing. One was, if there were to be a switch, I think you framed it as currently misdemeanors come as like charges filed or as like a crime has been committed. And you mentioned that there was a potential for changing it to receiving those as referral. And I wanted to understand more about how that change would functionally impact our working relationship, and like what some of the considerations or benefits might be.
From my perspective, I'm not sure it would change a lot from kind of a policy perspective in the terms of the city council. What it does for us is it gives us the ability to take a look at a case before we walk into a courtroom, where if an officer writes a citation, the case is charged. So we are often looking at the reports for the first time as we're walking in to an arraignment docket or something, and the court process has already started. For some cases like traffic cases, which tend to be more routine, that's really not as big of an issue. But some of the cases, and particularly, and I don't know, Chief, are your officers charging domestic violence by citation, or are we still doing arrest and referral on those? Because the domestic violence cases were the ones that tend to be the ones we want to take a closer look at before they get into court.
If we make an arrest, we have to issue a citation to book
Yep.
them in the Nisqually jail. If
Oh.
we don't make an arrest, then yeah, we don't issue a citation. We just send the case as a referral. But if it's the mandatory arrest, yeah, we have to write a cite for booking.
Yeah, okay, that's the piece that I thought was in place. And so that there's a coordination piece of this that would have to be done where, we'd have to make sure the jails are on board to allow that booking to happen without a citation on probable cause, which is how felony cases are booked in on probable cause. But from a functional standpoint, it really just affords us an opportunity to take a look at the case ahead of time. And if it's a case that we don't think is fully developed or shouldn't be charged or whatever, we have the chance to get that out before we walk into a courtroom instead of dismissing it after, the court process has already started. So it just moves up a little bit. It's a little bit moved up in the sequential intercept, process, if you will. It's considered more of a best practice, again, particularly in domestic violence or other more nuanced cases, which is why we're looking at it for that as well. There is a major challenge going on with DUI. I didn't mention this, but I will mention it because I don't know that everybody is aware of this. But our state tox lab is like significantly behind on testing blood samples. So if there's a DUI that requires an analysis of a blood sample, it's at least a year to 18 months before we can actually get results from the tox lab, has been our more recent experience from what I'm hearing. And that is so we've been forced to dismiss a lot of DUI cases at first appearance because we don't have the lab results that we need to be able to actually prosecute the case beyond a reasonable doubt. There was clearly probable cause for the arrest. That's not in question. And I'm not questioning that the arrest was made because with impaired drivers, sometimes that arrest needs to be made to make sure that there's, public safety and that person's not getting behind the wheel again. But it's difficult then to have to turn around, dismiss it, sit there and wait. This is that's a much bigger statewide challenge right now than than what we could solve in this group here, obviously. But just so you know that if you hear issues about DUIs not getting resolved quickly enough, oftentimes that's part of what might be going on is that we don't have a tox result. Now, if we can go with a breathalyzer test, or we can go on what we call field tests, and we feel we can prove the impairment beyond a reasonable doubt with that, we'll move forward on the case without the tox lab if we can. So we do the best we can with what we've got, but in some of those, we just have to dismiss them and then wait it out.
I'll just add,
Would,
John and
oh,
Christy,
go ahead.
as far as like citations and stuff, if you can get in Nisqually jail to take someone without a citation, we have no problem not writing one.
Okay, yeah, well, that's good to know. It's good to know, and I think we could probably get there. I'm really we're talking about it internally because we want to make sure we're not biting off more than we can chew before we go out and start talking to other partners about it, because it adds a little bit more work on our side to have to review cases and charge them ahead of time.
Get it.
When you talk about the backlog at the toxicology lab, does our police officers now having body worn cameras? Does that help at all?
It can help. Yes, having a video of to be able to prove impairment can help, but it can also actually be a little deceiving because there are some very functional folks that can appear very functional even though they're legally impaired, right? In terms of their blood limit, with their blood alcohol would be over the limit. So it can cut both ways. But I've become a believer in body cam. I think it's helpful in more instances than it's not.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Thank you. I had a follow-up too about DUIs. Is the reason why you've had to dismiss some of them because Tox Lab is taking a long time with their backlog because people have a right to a certain amount of time for their trial to be processed? Is that the
Yeah.
legal reason?
Yeah, see, that's what happens if we charge it, then if it's a charged case, speedy trial's running. And so if we wait right up until the trial date and then we dismiss the case because we can't prove it, most of that speedy trial has run. And so if we were to refile it, we've already had a couple cases that got dismissed because the judge said, "Oh, you waited too long to dismiss this case. You should have dismissed it sooner." So we've moved our practice now to try to dismiss those cases early on if we determine we can't prove it at trial without that tox lab. So you're exactly right. Um, there was one other thing I wanted to add. It was about the body cams. I will just, again, this is by way of information, just so you know how body cams have impacted the practice, criminal practice. We have a while ago we now use the system, an evidence management system called Axon, which you've probably heard about. It's one of the lead. I don't. Tumwater's still using the.
We just
which
switched
system?
we use the evidence.com too.
You do, okay.
When we switched to body worn cams, we switched to evidence.com.
Do you have Axon cameras, or are you still with the other GTech?
No, we have Axon, body worn cams, and in-car cams.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, because managing that digital evidence has been a huge challenge. So we, on average, we're getting this is actually a little bit old figure. I need to get a new one, but after the body cam started to come online, we were averaging about 4 terabytes a week of data coming in. And so, Axon is cloud-based, so we were having now most of our evidence is actually stored in the cloud. It's completely changed the way we practice that, along with cell phones and digital evidence. It has really changed the landscape in terms of both prosecution and defense, because now we also have to have the people who can watch that stuff and review it. We are exploring a new AI feature that Axon is rolling out, which could utilize an AI tool to actually review video for us and try to identify relevant portions of video, so we don't have to have somebody sit and watch, an hour of video for 2 minutes worth of relevant, some kind of relevant material or content. Right now, that's a lot of what we use interns for, because they once we kind of give them an idea of what to look for, they can find it. But it's a big deal. That being said, I'm a believer in cams, body cams, and the other video surveillance stuff. Well, and I'll mention, the prevalence of video surveillance just generally, even in businesses and doorbell cameras and all of that. It's actually rare to get a referral now. I don't know if we ever get a referral anymore without some kind of digital evidence, video evidence coming in that we have to review. So that's been a big change for us.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Can I ask a kind of a left field question? And if it's totally baseless, maybe I can connect offline, or you can point me in the right direction. But we had a situation occur recently where we had a property owner who has folks trespassing on his property, and he asked for our assistance to help address the trespassers. One of the individuals was arrested for trespassing, and when they got out of prison, they were successful in getting a restraining order against the property owner and claimed that the property owner's address was in fact their address, that they had recently been arrested for trespassing. And so that was upheld by the judge, and we're just trying to understand, we're trying to work in cooperation and coordination with the property owner, and we're trying to understand what is the legal process to be able to do that.
Yeah, part of the problem that you're dealing with there is you're actually dealing with a couple of different legal processes that don't always coordinate or communicate very well together. I got a heads up that there was this case out there, so I took a quick look, and of course we have the trespass case. That's what's in our system right now. But that order, if there was a restraining order, was issued through the civil court, and it must have been done as a civil action by that person who filed a complaint or a petition for a civil restraining order, and somehow obtained that. And it's possibly because, well, those orders are initially issued based only on an affidavit given by the person who's the petitioner, but they're only good for 14 days. It's kind of like like a temporary restraining order, so to speak. And then there's another hearing following that to where the person who's the subject of the order actually has an opportunity to come and be heard. So the property owner is the respondent here. It would be up to him to actually come into civil court and respond and show up and, defend that action, if you will. We wouldn't have a role in that at all because we have no authority to intervene in any kind of a civil action like that. In the meantime, our trespass case, I didn't have a chance to look at any orders on that. So I don't know in our trespass case if there's a condition on there that the person not trespass again. I would think there would be. Intuitively would think that would exist. So it's this conundrum that we run into where we've got a civil order and a criminal order and they're not coordinated together.
Okay, that's helpful. I appreciate the background. That's helpful in understanding.
Yeah.
We can always follow up offline too.
Okay.
But just kind of understanding those systems and processes and how they flow together, where in this case not is helpful to understand. But I appreciate
that tends to happen a fair amount in domestic violence cases.
Yes.
We see that. In fact, there's been efforts over the years to try to better coordinate those orders because we'll get a criminal no contact order to protect a victim in our case, and then the perpetrator will go out and get a civil order against our victim to restrain the victim in our case. And so the two orders are competing with each other, and it can get messy kind of quickly. So it happens, unfortunately, more frequently than I would prefer, but it is what it is.
Right.
Have anything?
No. Well, thank you both so much for spending some time with us and giving us an overview. And yes, please, if there's drug court or mental health court or whatever, I think it would be interesting for public health and safety members to attend and just have a better idea of how this works with our community.
Absolutely.
I think we do another one of these later in the year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Towards the
Usually
fall. And so we'll
October. Yeah.
Yep. We'll have some additional numbers, some updated numbers for you at that point, just to kind of keep you apprised of caseload as well. And I'm sure everybody knows that there's a transition happening in my office at the end of the year. And so I think we probably will have some information and update on what our transition looks like and how we're doing that. So, yeah, we'll have a chance to catch up on all of that later in the year.
Great. Thank you so much.
All
Good to
right.
see everybody.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Okay. Next on our agenda is to reevaluate the meeting time. So we made a pivot and didn't take into consideration that we're going to have staff and council members potentially run from one meeting to the next. And so I'd like to offer a breather for all of us. So I guess.
Anybody have a preference? Day or time?
I couldn't do, I could do a Wednesday, but it couldn't be the second Wednesday.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays typically work best for me, but I can figure out any time.
I could do
Megan?
Wednesday, but not the third Wednesday because I'm stacked up with other meetings on the third Wednesday.
Yeah.
First or fourth Wednesday of the month.
What about staff?
What time on Wednesday are you talking about?
I think 4 still, Megan, works. Does that work with your schedule?
As long as it's not on the third Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah, I think we can be flexible.
Carlos, that work for you as well?
Which Wednesday are we talking about? The first
Like
Wednesday?
in the 1st or the 4th?
Chief Hurley, that work?
I have no conflicts on the first Wednesday.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think my camera's working. It's like the 4th works.
I think the only conflict that I see maybe is November and December holiday months. But
Oh, yeah.
You can also come up with alternative dates for those months. But if you're looking at the 4th, but if you're looking at the 1st,
Chief Hurley, the 1st Wednesday
Yeah.
doesn't work for you.
No, it should. We can make it work.
It should.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the
First
first
Wednesday
Wednesday
of
at
the month.
4. Someone will make that motion.
Yes.
I move to switch our times to the first Wednesday of the month at 4 p.m.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, motion passes. Look at us working together.
Perfect.
So recognizing that that's 2 weeks out, and it's also a vacation week.
Maybe
Are you
not
okay?
until
Okay,
that
not meeting in
August.
August and having the September be the first meeting.
I am. Do we need to make a motion for that as well?
No.
Okay. Does that work for you, Megan, to take? Okay.
September 2nd will be your next regularly scheduled meeting at 4 p.m.
Our regularly scheduled programming will come.
September 2nd. Perfect.
Okay. Any additional or future items?
I just put on the radar that we're going to start looking at bringing drones for various reasons. And so I'll be looking at maybe bringing something in a presentation or something in September to discuss with public health and safety on why and what that could look like.
Okay.
We get a chance to fly up. It's a joke. Sorry. Yeah.
Karen doesn't.
No.
I couldn't see Karen's reaction. Was it?
Right out there. Councilmember Sullivan, did I see you about to say something?
Yes, yeah. I'm newer to this party and I'm learning so much, and I am very interested in learning more about what data we have and what data we can share. And part of this came out of a brief conversation with the mayor where she was explaining some of how the TCOM data works. And in our conversation, we were not sure if data about calls that TCOM logs like talks to data that we have about like what actually happened after the call, because sometimes the call is not quite descriptive of what actually occurs on the ground. Basically was part of I guess there was questions about how does TCOM data relate to data that we have. And I know we have a data person and robust data, and I don't know a lot about the data that we have, and I want to learn more about data. So that's like a few things in one.
Chief?
Councilmember Sullivan, would you like me to have Oliver reach out to you so he can kind of field your question and see what he can put together and maybe bring back to public health and safety?
Absolutely. And I guess also question would be like, are there regular things that come to this group as far as like data that we see on any interval? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have him reach out, and that way you two can talk directly, and then he's very good. He can get in and find all the answers to the questions, and he can bring it back and present it to the group.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any thoughts about data you'd want to see, or does anyone who's been here longer than me know about like data we get on any regular interval or anything like that?
I think when we get presentations, there's usually data attached to it, but I don't know that we have. I mean, I think it's something definitely to look at so we can build with our understanding and also the storytelling of all the work that's happening with public health and safety to the community. So I think that's a great idea.
Chief, do you know, like when you're getting calls that are coming through TCOM and everything, those are rated basically like a 1 to a 4? Is that correct? Is that
Yeah,
like Thurston County wide?
Yeah, they have a priority rating. So, and it goes from, the most serious to, your routine type calls. So generally any emergency crimes in progress, crimes against people are like priority 3s, priority 2s, priority 1s, and they get dispatched from highest to lowest.
Yeah, I would be interested in continuing the conversation and understanding how that data is processed and how it relates to the actual boots on the ground. And
Right. I don't really have anything else other than I just wanted to thank police and fire for all of the hard work on the 4th of July. I know you get to spend it with the community and not with your families oftentimes. And so that's really appreciated. So we can have a wonderful parade and wonderful fireworks show for our community. So I just wanted to extend my thank you.
Appreciate that.
Anything else?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I say we adjourn this meeting at 4:52 p.m. Thank you all. See you in September.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.